Real quick, before we continue with the episode, I want to let you know that if you're a creative person who wants to share your creative gift or whatever you're passionate about with other people and create an online community, a podcast is an amazing way to do it. And you can start a podcast today with Anchor by Spotify. It's such an easy way to make a podcast. Trust me. I'm not a tech person and I did it. So if I can do it, honey, you can too, okay? Anchor has tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast from your phone or your computer. And you can host on Anchor and it will distribute your podcast to platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. So you don't have to worry about, uploading your podcast to all these different sites. And it's everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. And it's 100% free. So there you go. Let's go. Start your podcast, create your online community, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. All right, without further ado, let's continue. Hello and welcome to the Creatively by Estelle podcast. This is our first episode. Yay, I'm so excited to be doing this. My name is Estelle Averi and I'm your host, and I'm so glad that you're here. Honestly, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just want you to know right now you are blessed. I'm so grateful for your life. You have so much to give, and God has created you to do so many beautiful things, and I just want to be here to help, really. So this podcast is called Creatively by Estelle. Emphasis on the creatively. Emphasis on the creative. And what it's about, well, let's get into that. So this show is really for students and young professionals and really just aspiring creatives who are really looking to express themselves creatively through a creative outlet and who want to be creative, especially when it comes to performing, singing, dancing, and specifically musical theater related. So maybe you're someone who used to be involved in theater when you were younger, or you did musical theater at one point in your life, or you always wanted to and you just never really got the chance to. And maybe you're in a non-creative field or a non-creative program in school. And I just want you to know that it's not too late and it's not impossible for you to be able to engage in the theater and in musical theater and music and the arts, and to really find your find some happiness in growing in those areas and pursuing those things. Because guess what, God is the one who puts desires in our hearts, and he's the one who gives us these gifts. And so if you're able to, if you want to, and there's nothing wrong with stepping into that and trying to pursue it in one way or another, even if it's just in a little way here and there. So I want this Creatively by Estelle podcast to be the space for you to really light that flame, light that passion, and help you to encourage you to really express yourself creatively through these specific areas of musical theater, performing, and singing. And so I'm really excited for what's to come. We're going to have solo episodes with me just chatting with you. We're going to have some guest episodes as well, interviews, and so it's really exciting to see what's going to come next. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory about myself and a little bit more information about your host or hostess here, I guess, to know where I'm coming from and what this is all about. And so my name's Estelle. Like I said before, I'm first and foremost a child of God, saved by the grace of God through Jesus Christ. And that is really the center of who I am. That informs every part of me, every part of my life. And who I want to be really is who Christ has made me to be, who God has made me to be, and how through the Holy Spirit he is even growing me into that person. So that really is central to who I am as a person. And then in addition to that, I am a daughter of Nigerian immigrants. I have 2 sisters, wonderful family, and I love them very much. I am currently in my first year / and a half, because it's summer session right now, of medical school. And I go to Ross University School of Medicine, located in Barbados, and they also have a office and location in Florida. And so I'm in that school. Currently, it's been online. It's been online due to the pandemic, but I'm actually preparing to go to Barbados. By the time this podcast is released, I should be in Barbados, God willing. And so I'll be in Barbados for about a year, and then I'll be back in the States to do rotations and to finish out the program. So, when I was pre-med, I first started a blog. That's what really started getting me into the online space. I did a blog. It was a style blog, fashion blog. And I loved it. I had so much fun doing it. It was a great creative outlet for me. I love fashion. But I realized once I graduated that I needed to transition to something else. I just didn't know what. And so last year, I realized that I love performing and I love singing and dancing, and I really wanted to lean more into that. So I started doing like self-reteaching myself dance and certain aspects of contemporary dance, which I'd taken some. I'd been a part of like a very relaxed contemporary lyrical dance group in college, like for like just a few semesters. It was very relaxed. So that was fun, and I was like, I really would love to do a little bit more of that. So I started doing follow along with online, on YouTube, YouTubers, dance YouTubers, and things like that. Just kind of working my way through, relearning some things, and wanting to grow as a dancer, because I was like, that was really fun, and I'd love to do that as my way of exercising and taking care of my health. So I decided to do that at the beginning of 2020, and then the pandemic hit, and I was doing that more from home. I actually did an online dance class. It was a local dance class. I'm in North Carolina, and so it was a class in North Carolina, but I was doing it online because of the pandemic. So that was really fun. That was a great way for me to get back into dance, and I was just like, wow, I loved doing that. And it felt really hard at first to be able to try to be able to like reteach myself something that I had, hadn't really been in a dance class in so long. And so, but I realized that there is a way to do it. Like, there is a way to have a creative outlet and to make it a part of your life without it being so strenuous and seeming impossible. And that was really a really cool thing for me to discover and to uncover. And so that was one thing that happened. Additionally, I just started thinking more critically about myself as a singer as well. So I had minored in voice and music in undergrad for a brief time. And so I taken voice lessons with 2 different teachers, and I loved them both. And so after college, I was like, well, I still want to continue that. I still want to keep singing and thinking critically about my voice. I wasn't sure about doing lessons because, again, the the pandemic had hit, and so I realized that I wasn't sure about doing online lessons. So I just, decided to focus on trying to kind of train myself, which, we can talk about this in another episode, but it has its pros and cons, of course. But at this time, my parents had also started a church, and so we were really involved in the choir, and I was really involved in the choir, and that was also a really great way for me to not only worship God and connect with God and with the people of God, but to also grow as a singer, which was really cool. And so, that was happening, and at the same time, I was also thinking, I really miss acting too, and I'd love to be, kind of maybe do an acting class or something. And so that didn't really pan out fully. But the idea is that during this time, like I said before, I knew I was transitioning out of fashion blogging as my creative outlet. And I was thinking, well, okay, how am I going to do something creative that's more geared towards the performing arts? Like, how am I going to do this and do it methodically and do it thoughtfully and intentionally? And I just did not really know how. The dancing was working out well. I wasn't sure about the singing, and then the acting as well. And so I started at this time, for years and years, I'd always loved musical theater and been drawn to the theater. But at this time, I started really getting even more interested in it, even more engrossed in it. And I don't know if you remember, but It was over that summer that Hamilton came out on Disney Plus. Yes. And that was a really, really big deal. I had loved Hamilton for years. My sisters and I loved it for years, right? Like many, many other people in the theater world and outside of the theater world. So I was so excited. We were so excited when it came out on Disney Plus. Immediately got Disney Plus. It's like, okay, now we have to get Disney Plus just for Hamilton. And so that, in addition to so many other things, were just drawing me more and more towards Broadway and the world of musical theater. And I was just like, you know what? I really want to engage in this more. I really want to start, learning songs and doing this more just for myself, just because I love it and just because it's enjoyable. It's a great way for me to practice singing and also telling a story, through my actions and my words and everything. And so I started getting more into that more and more. And eventually, once I started in medical school, I was like, okay, actually, I'm not sure about this. I think I need to just maybe put aside having a creative outlet for now and just maybe focus on school. And so I kind of sat down, for better or worse, I set down the musical theater, stuff and the singing and dancing for several weeks, which for me was a long time. Because even all my life, whether I'm in school or not, I'm always finding ways to sing, always trying to find ways to do something creative. And so, but for that time, I kind of paused for a little bit intentionally and was also praying about my blog and what direction I wanted it to go. All this time, I was blogging sporadically, but it was kind of general stuff about finding ways to be creative, in COVID, finding ways to have a creative outlet over the summer and things like that. So I'd been blogging, but now it was the fall. I started school and it was online, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to focus on school. And then I'll just be praying that God will lead me the direction of how I should take this blog. So long story short, God did lead me eventually. I just kept going back to singing and going back to musicals and going back to loving that and really wanting that to be a part of my life and knowing that was going to be my creative thing, And even though I love fashion, I loved all that stuff, but I knew that the performing arts were going to be my creative outlet. It had always been there, but I hadn't really taken full advantage of it for many reasons, which, again, so many different topics that we will go into as time goes on, but that's just one reason, It had always been a part of my life, but I guess I just hadn't, like I said, I hadn't really taken full advantage of it. So, yeah. But then by the time it was the end of the year and I was going to the new year, 2021, I just knew there was this shifting that was going on. And I knew that it was going to be, in my blog, I was going to see that happen and in so many other ways. And so cut to 2021, a couple months into the semester, maybe less than that, honestly, maybe just a month or so into the semester, God starts putting on my heart this title, these words, creatively yours, creatively, I don't know, I can't remember the other one, so I remember creatively yours. I started looking up some of these names on Instagram and Google just to see if there were other websites that had some of these different variations of names, and I was like, well, how about Creatively by Estelle? Because, my fashion blog was initially Story of Style on WordPress. And then I transitioned it in 2020 to Squarespace. And I named it SOS by Estelle. So it was Story of Style, but then I changed it to Story of Soul, but it was still SOS, so it didn't matter. So it was SOS by Estelle. That was the URL. Anyway, So I realized, okay, Creatively by Estelle, it still keeps that, my name's in there, and it's kind of a unique name. So I like having it in there, because I feel like people are like, oh, okay, interesting name there. I don't know, maybe not. But, yeah, so Creatively by Estelle, I decided on that as a name. And what kept coming to me was this idea for journals, to make journals, to inspire other people who, like me, know that they have a creative passion, but maybe something's kind of holding them back. Maybe they aren't 100% sure how to go about that passion, how to go about pursuing it in an intentional way in their life. Maybe they're not sure how to go about making or creating a creative outlet. They're not sure where to start, and they're not even motivated to do it, but they still have this inkling that they could. Because I knew what that felt like. I still know what that feels like. And so, and I have always been a fan of journaling. I've journaled most days of my life for the past, how old am I? 22? I guess like almost decade, honestly, since middle school. Since middle school, and definitely in high school. So it's been a while. It's been a while that I've loved journaling. And so I would always talk about it on my Instagram and on my blog about, journaling and praying, and, writing things down has a really important impact on us mentally and emotionally. And it does have a really big impact on us when we write things down, and when we, think through things in that way. So, yeah. So I've always had a love for journaling, and over time it's just grown more, and it's really helped me flesh out creative ideas, flesh out how I want to organize myself creatively and my passions and pursuits. And so I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because honestly, I was journaling daily first semester. Almost daily. I was journaling a lot, spending a lot of time with God, letting him lead me to where, he wanted me to guide my blog into, and where he wanted me to be creative and how he wanted me to be creative. And so journaling was a catalyst for that, and God used journaling for me to really help me to come to this place of understanding who I am and who I want to be as a creative person. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, let's go for it. Let's make some journals and inspire people. So I made a few journals, a few different designs myself, and I just did it scrappy, like like a lot of people say, do it scrappy, do it messy. And I really did. I just was trying my best, but in the midst of school and everything, a lot of things were going on this past semester, but thank God I was still able to put them out, because I knew that I wanted to be obedient to God. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to do it, because God really keeps bringing it back to me when I'm praying, when I'm doing different things. Like, it would just keep coming back to me. So I knew I had to be obedient to him, and I went ahead and did it. It took me a second, but I went ahead and put up a few on my Etsy shop. So at Creatively by Estelle, same name as the podcast. So Creatively by Estelle journals. They're also on my website at creativelybyestelle.com. And so that was a really exciting thing for me to do. But really, the reason that the podcast came to be, that has been a journey over time. That has been a journey over the past, I'd say, year and a half. I started listening to podcasts though when I was in college. Let's see. I think I was in my sophomore year. And the first episode, or the first podcast I remember listening to, was Girl Boss Radio by Sophia and Maruso. And I loved it. And ever since then, I've always loved podcasts. And then at the beginning of 2020, I started getting into a bunch of different podcasts around creativity and like entrepreneurship and all these different topics, and social media and musical theater and things like that. And so I've had a journey of love with podcasting. And honestly, I realized I love talking. I love talking to people about things that I'm passionate about, just like I love writing about them. And so I decided that I would love to do this, but I knew that God was telling me to wait. And so I thought about it last year, and I was like, no, not yet. The timing just didn't feel right. Maybe that was fear, but I think it was truly God. Like, I truly think that there is a time for everything. And so I was like, I'm going to wait, and I'll know when the time is right. And I just know that it's now, and I'm so excited. And so that's really how this came about. God has given me a love for podcasts for a while now, but it's been over time that he's really kind of drawn me to know, because first, I needed to know who it was I was speaking to, what it was that I wanted to talk about. And if I had started a year ago, I really didn't have the clarity that I do now. So you know what? God makes all things to work together for our good. Indeed, yes. That is very true. And so thank God for his guidance and his leadership. And I'm just so grateful to finally be able to be here doing this. And I am so excited for the content that we have coming up. Until then, go and binge some of my blog posts that I've had of late. A lot of them are focused on these exact same topics that we will be touching here about creativity, about making time for creativity, some musical theater themed stuff, some things about singing and growing as a singer. And so I'm just speaking to you, the student, the young professional, wherever you are in your season of life, but you know that you have this desire to use your God-given creative gifts. You know that you have a love for creativity, and you know that you want to use it in the areas of performing arts. You want to learn more about singing. You love dancing. You love musical theater. You love storytelling through the performing arts. Honey, this is the place to be. This is what we're going to be touching on in this show, and I'm going to be going along with you, and I hope you'll stay with me throughout this ride as we go along, finding ways to really infuse creativity in our everyday lives through the performing arts, through musical theater, as we just fall in love with it more and more, and ultimately allow God to use those gifts and those passions and that creativity for his glory. All right. And so that is Creatively by Estelle. This is our very first episode. Thank you for sticking around, and I cannot wait to see you next week, God willing. And yeah, so look out for the next episode a week from today. Once again, thank you so much for being here. If you listened to this episode and you enjoyed it and you enjoyed our little story time, find me on Instagram at Estelle Avberry and send me a DM there, or on TikTok too. I'm on TikTok as well, Estelle Avberry _. Send me a message there. Find me and send me a message. Let me know what you thought about this show. I would love to get your feedback. And yeah, send me any topics that you would like to have discussed here that line up with musical theater and performing arts and creativity, and let's tackle them here, okay? So let me know what you thought of this episode. Thank you so much for being here. You are loved, you are blessed, and God has given you so much creativity. Let's use it together, all for his glory. All right, so see you next week. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode. Real quick before you go, there is a Facebook page that I made called the Creatively Community, and I'd love for you to search that on Facebook and go ahead and like it, because I'm going to continue to post some content there, and we're going to make that into a group so we can keep building community, okay? So thanks so much again, and I'll see you next week.